Welcome back to Alter Ego Bros, and today we're going to review the movie Sinners to help people like you save time and money going to the theaters, or spend time and money if we like it. As always, this is spoiler free, and at the end of the video we're going to give you our recommendations and official ratings, and our place on the tier list. I'm your host today, and I've been here the whole time. Sinners is a Southern Gothic horror film, thriller, drama thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. And I almost don't want to say this because it's kind of like a spoiler, but it's totally not a spoiler. It stars Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan, but we'll talk about that later too. It's directed and written by Ryan Coogler, who also wrote Black Panther and Creed. And he brought along his musical buddy, Ludwig Göransson, who also did the music for Black Panther and Creed and has won the Oscar for Black Panther and recently Oppenheimer. But we'll talk about the music stuff down the road too. The budget is $90 million, which is really high for a horror film. The horror films we've been seeing recently have been like $15 million. You can go check out Death of a Unicorn. These movies by A24 and Neon, they're like more smaller, but they do such a fantastic job. So to have $90 million is crazy, but that's because this is a Warner Brothers film. Therefore, they have money. Some outlets are classifying this as a horror film. If you go look at AMC theaters, they're saying it's a thriller drama. I'm kind of on the side of thriller drama for this film. It's kind of a hybrid. It borders that line for sure. But as far as a horror film goes, like there aren't really, I wouldn't call them scary monsters. They're vampires in this case, and they're more like Twilight vampires. And I bring up Twilight because any relation to Robert Pattinson that I can bring up at any moment, I'm gonna do it.
That one feels a little bit forced there, but okay. I'm definitely on the drama thriller side of things too. Like you said, there's not a whole lot of like horror elements. There is a lot of blood, but I would say a majority of the movie is not that way at all. And then when you do get to the part where there is horror stuff, you know it's coming. It's not a surprise. I wouldn't classify it as a classic horror.
In the beginning of this movie, there were some aspects of it that kind of felt like it was going to be a cheap horror film to me, but the more it kept going on, the more I realized that like there's a lot of intention behind a lot of the decisions in this movie, especially in the music choice. The music in this film will be an Oscar nomination. I went into this film just trying to be as blind as possible so that I'm not biased. And it opens up with some blues music, which, you know, like I'm good with blues, but after a couple songs, I get a little bored of it. I was not like that in this film. And in fact, it played some blues and it was pretty groovy. And then all of a sudden just starts to hit you. I'm like, oh shoot, what is this? Like, this is a little different. And then we started to get into other scenes. There's a train station scene, and the music was really just starting to get rougher and tougher as this train was coming along, and it was just rolling. And I was like, why is everything just blending way too well right now? The only person that I ever know that ever thinks like this and is like telling a story through the music is Hans Zimmer. Did Hans Zimmer write this music? When I learned that it was Ludwig Göransson, it made so much more sense to me because Ludwig was an assistant to Hans Zimmer in the past, so that makes sense why they would have such similar writing styles. What did you think about the soundtrack here, Nick?
I think that the soundtrack is equally as important as the story. You have blues being portrayed as something that is transcendent. And you as the audience member, this is your portal into that world, into the 1930s, in with Smoke and Stack, going with them throughout their day. They talk about that as the concept, as the connection between past, present, and future. And you can't talk about this movie without talking about a particular dance scene that is just so powerful and so important. It is definitely going to be the biggest cinematic moment of this movie that will be talked about long after people have seen it in theaters and it's won awards and stuff. This is it's big. It's really, really big. Ooh, what an experience. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
And talking about the music, just telling the story, let's talk about the actual storyline. So ever since 2015, Crimson Peak has been my #1 favorite horror film, mostly because it bases it on a story first and then gets into like the horror drama stuff later on. I love that about it. It wasn't just here's the monster and here's jump scares. Sinners is very similar in this, where it just focuses so much more on the story before it worries about introducing anything else to you. The movie opens up with a glimpse into the future and then, in quotes, says, "One day ago." We literally spent 24 hours in that whole movie. And I know Nick and I have similar feelings about this, so I'm just gonna let him take this on and just you speak on this whole storyline premise.
Like Andy said, we spend a lot of just intimate time with both Smoke and Stack and Sammy. And one thing that's always really bugged me about these movies is that things seem to happen really quickly as the movie goes on, but like timeline wise, the events of the movies are usually like hours apart. That is not the case in this one. You spend the full 24 hours with them, and it feels like you're actually with them, going on errands, learning more about them. You're getting these glimpses into each one of their lives as we're going throughout the day, that you can't help but get more and more attached to them as time goes on. It was one of the best chronological stories that has been told to date, and it was just so much fun.
I want to get into my final point here too before we get into our ratings and recommendation. There's two characters, two brothers, they're twins named Smoke and Stack. And as I was watching them, I kept wondering which one is Michael B. Jordan, because they looked so identical. The casting was done really well. In the whole movie, I was trying to figure out who the heck is Michael B. Jordan. I was like, oh, that's Michael B. Jordan. Yeah, he's big, he's strong. Like, yeah, that's Michael B. Jordan. Then I see the other brother. I'm like, oh no, that's Michael B. Jordan, I'm pretty sure. Then I was like debating, like, who's the better actor? Because like somebody like, and who's this other actor here that looks exactly like Michael B. Jordan? That's so official. That makes sense. I was like, none of it made sense to me either.
They're the same face! Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
So I learned the next day that Michael B. Jordan did play both brothers, and they just comped him into all these scenes. And there were at times, apparently, they did use a double, but still, that blew my mind. I was so fooled in this that even still right now, I'm just speechless. I'm gonna let Nick speak to this now.
Yeah, the CGI was seamless. You can't tell. It's all hidden very, very, very well. I want to speak more on the acting side of things, because not only did Michael B. Jordan play two characters, they were two twins. In order to play twins, it's not the same thing as playing two separate characters. They have to have this connection, right? That normal non-twins like you or I don't have. And they had that. They had that connection, and you felt that throughout the movie. And it's such a shame that I believe this movie is going to be put into a horror category, even though it's very much a drama and a thriller. But when we come to like award season next year, I think that performance is going to be totally overlooked, which is truly tragic. I hope it's not. I hope I'm wrong, but horror movies generally don't get any sort of spotlight when it comes to awards, which is really upsetting, and he deserves a lot for this role in particular. And so does Sammy, one of the newcomers in this. And he learned how to play the guitar in 5 months. I don't know if I told you that, Andy. He learned in 5 months to play that guitar. You would never know. Blown away.
Do you have any other final thoughts?
I didn't take any notes from this movie because I was so captivated. It is clearly the easiest 10 out of 10 I have ever given, the best movie of the year so far, and I recommend people to run to the theater to go see this movie. Don't wait. You're going to regret it. Go out to the theater. I
too am a 10 out of 10. It's the easiest 10 out of 10 I've given since Dune Part 2, which we didn't review because we're a very new channel, less than a year old. Thank you for 10,000 subs already, though. And I do also recommend that you go out to theaters to see this 100%. Don't miss this one. we're going to do something new and put Sinners on our new tier list. And that puts Sinners right at the very top, somewhere over here. I can't see the thing. This is a boast. Thank you for liking, subscribing. We really appreciate all the subs and all the love lately.
And remember, we've just been two regular dudes
Doing regular reviews.
Not
Anyway.
at all like Twilight vampires, but yeah, sure.
I think they're like Twilight vampires. Okay.